to watch what you ask for. Don't just support things because they sound good or because they rhyme. When I first heard about this guy, I was talking to my friends in New York and they had no idea who he is and what he's about. He just wasn't Mayor Adams, who a lot of people had turned on. But we'll see how this plays out when we end up in somewhat of a race war between Indians and blacks and whites and Hispanics. It's going to be interesting. But check out this story and you tell me what you think. You tell me if you think that what he did was right, if it was innocent, or if he was just trying to play the race card.
So back in 2009, Zoran Mamdani, or whatever, the Socialist Democrat nominee for New York City's mayor, identified as black or African American when he applied to Columbia University. I guess there was no box for trust fund communist douchebag.
And what he means by that is this guy's background is not one of poverty or having to pull himself up by the bootstraps. He comes from an academic background as far as his father, and his mom is a big-time director.
But it didn't work. He didn't get in. He probably shouldn't have included a referral letter from this lady. But now, Zoran says he doesn't consider himself black at all. I guess it was that Justin Trudeau kind of black, where you just wipe it off at the end of the day. But it raises the often ignored question: how can you claim to be oppressed when you know the claim gets preferential treatment?
Bingo! This is where we need to be honest with ourselves. I think the affirmative actions and the affirmative action policies that were put in place were needed at the time. But as with anything, things start as a cause, they then become a movement, they then become a business, then they become an out and out scam. So is there a need for certain groups to be able to have more access? Absolutely. But what has happened with the academic system is there are people and ways of gaming the system. And this is exactly what he tried to do. But I guess his academic profile was so bad, he still didn't get in, despite saying that he was African American.
I mean, why would anyone voluntarily choose an identity that supposedly holds you back unless you knew it could actually move you forward? So he saw the grift, using a false disadvantage to actually get ahead. He was lying to get what he wanted, like when I used to tell women that I love them. He wasn't confused, he was calculating. Mamdani knew that applying while black could be a ticket past the velvet rope of Ivy League admissions. And that was in 2009. Since then, identity politics has exploded into a full-blown access pass for corporations, schools, girls' locker rooms. So with one stroke of the pen, this privileged progeny of Hollywood and academia tried to leapfrog over everyone else. And that's Mamdani's background. Dad's a professor, mom's a director, both Indian, making him Indian. Because he was born in Uganda.
Precisely. So he's Indian, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the next thing that Greg is going to say may astound some people because maybe they don't know that, because it's always pitted as black against white. But if you're actually trying to figure out who the most successful people in the American society are as far as income, you might be surprised by this.
Uganda, yes, born and not descended from, he checked the black box. That's like claiming you're Hispanic because your mom went into labor at Taco Bell. The hot sauce will do it to you. But hell, even Uganda doesn't consider him Ugandan. You need Ugandan ancestry for that. So why didn't he just say what he was? Well, Indian Americans have the highest median household income in the U.S. I know. I didn't know Uber drivers made that kind of money.
Oh, racist would say.
Did you hear what he just said? And there's nothing wrong. And I think part of the reason why they do so well is because they tend to have a solid family structure. Culturally, it's not the norm for them to have children out of wedlock. And so when you look at the groups of people that tend to do the best, it's the people that tend to have a more structured, standard home life with a mother, a father, the kids. And I'm not saying that that's the only way that you can have a family. There are different family makeups, but the ones that tend to be more successful culturally are the more traditional households. So he comes from a background where if he puts that on the application, it actually disadvantages him, because a recent lawsuit that was taken out, and it ended up all the way in the Supreme Court, was the whole case about Asian Americans being disadvantaged because they had to actually score even higher because the weighting that other races were given to make sure that they didn't have too many Asian Americans in the school. So there was a meritocracy that was taking place, which meant that the people that performed the best were getting into these League schools, but because they weren't getting the outcome that they wanted to tip the scale to get a more diverse makeup of the students. And I'm not sure if that was the right way to go, because you don't stop racism by being racist. You don't disadvantage one group to pull another group up to try to make things even. I think the meritocracy and maybe rejigging some of the entrance exams, that it pulls in more things about more people that, you, depending on how you grew up, you may understand these things better than other people, but then other areas of the test should be things that would level things out. But ultimately what we need is a system where the best are given the opportunity, not because of their race, not because of their gender, not because of their sex, but because they're the best at what they do.
And you're racist for laughing. But being of Indian heritage isn't a resume builder when you're auditioning for the Oppression Olympics. So he pulls a Kilmeade, faking a limp so he can board first on Delta. But you notice it's always the lefties who pull this kind of shit? Their thinking is, we created this game, might as well take advantage of it. So he dumped his past and he picked the one that carries social capital. Still, he didn't get in, which means his transcript had so many D's in it, it looked like Governor Pritzker's bra. Guess he'll never get that degree in advanced flag burning. Now, you could call his lie a youthful indiscretion, but his entire brand is built on exploiting the very system he gained back then.
It's similar to Kamala Harris. This is a similar thing that happened when she ran for the Senate. She ran on the fact, or one of the facts, that she was going to be the first Asian or Indian American to be in the Senate, as well as being partially Black. But when it became a more advantageous thing for her to just lean into being Black, then that's what she did. And it's really sad that we are in an era where people would rather be the first Black person doing something than just to be the best that did the particular thing. So when we have a whole society that is more interested in the color of someone's skin or their gender than if they're able to do the job, you're always going to have this problem. And I don't blame people for taking advantage of a system that is designed to be taken advantage of.
He peddles victimhood and scolds America while living off its generosity. Sound familiar? It should. His campaign is pure progressive pablum: identity politics, open borders, Palestine cheerleading, and trans activism. And the act is simple: use the system to destroy the system. Today's left uses asylum laws to flood the country, then calls you cruel when you resist. They use free speech to defend movements that seek to cancel free speech. And they use the Americans with Disabilities Act to defend Joe Biden. They take advantage of every loophole America offers, then attack the very values that created those openings. This kind of lefty is like a bank robber who holds customers hostage to guarantee his own freedom. He understands that in our system, we care about hostages, and he grifts our compassion. So it's not about leading. Leftists want to dismantle, then control. But they're smart enough to do it from the inside, aping the oppressed while chasing the privileges and power of the elite. And when we say they're going to collapse the system with awful ideas, they say exactly.
This is a really good monologue by Greg. And I know he always puts in some things that are humorous and will make you laugh, but the serious point is that you have people that know what Americans are open to and what they want to support and the type of people that they want to give a chance. And people will take advantage of that. So that's like when they say you mistake someone's kindness for weakness. So he's painted this picture of himself as if he's this person from, in his words, a third world country that has come to America for the American dream and now wants to help those dispossessed people in New York. And that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is he's bringing a form, in his own words, of socialism. And socialism sounds good. It looks good on paper, but in practice, it never works. And when you tell socialists that socialism never works, they always say, well, it hasn't been done right. So why would you want to, again, test a thing that has never worked, thinking that you'll do it right with one of the largest economies on the planet? The city of New York has one of the largest economies on the planet. This guy has never had a job. This guy has never built anything. This guy has never employed people. But he wants the people of New York to entrust him with one of the greatest cities on the planet. And the sad thing is, there's a lot of people that blindly just fed in to all of the things that he's saying. So he's saying that there's going to be free buses and that, you know, there's going to be city-run grocery stores, etc. This experiment is not going to do well for New York. So what I'm starting to see is a lot of people, especially Black New Yorkers, are starting to pick a side. So they're saying, well, we didn't like Eric Adams because he was cordial with Donald Trump, but he's better than the Indian guy. So there's going to be this very funny and very entertaining breakdown of people's backgrounds and people supporting people, not based on their ideas, but more based on their skin color.
Tonight's guest! His wardrobe says you'll never take me alive, Batman. Host of Making Money on Fox Business, Charles Page. She's been in more men's locker rooms than Tim Waltz. Host of the Michelle Caboya podcast, Michelle Caboya. He watched the fireworks from the roof of his refrigerator box. Founder of Studio TST.com, Michael Loftus. And she puts her baby to sleep the old-fashioned way by letting him watch Jesse Waters. New York Times bestselling author and Fox News contributor, Captain.
I am going to react to what Charles Payne says, because he says what I've been saying for years. He says it in a more articulate way, but I think he nails it in his response to what's going on in New York.
Charles, I get it when people say, who cares about New York? You know, they deserve what they deserve it because this is what they vote for. But this guy's a rising star among the Dems. Yeah. Now, you're a black man, or so I'm told. Does this offend you?
Oh, yeah, on many levels.
Yes.
On many levels, yeah. You know, I put out a post over the weekend on this, and well, it was actually an interview Sharpton did with Jeffries. And it was so amazing because he said, well, let's not worry about that. We're concerned about affordability. And I got to tell you something. What I said, and I really mean it from my heart, is what these black Democrat leaders have done over a period of time is they've actually pimped out the black suffering in this country.
Boom. So well said. It is so true. When you look at a lot of the black leaders, especially the ones that try to speak from a civil rights perspective, a lot of them, what they're trying to do is just gain power. I have no doubt that they started with good intentions, but I think the power and the money corrupted them. And they realized that they can speak on behalf of what they think is the black population, people will pay them, people will make them the advocate, and they gain more power and more money. Al Sharpton is case in point. I think the Tawana Brawley thing, you need to look that up. The Tawana Brawley thing, I believe he came from a good place originally. But when the whole thing unfolded, the fact that he did not make it right is, to me, very telling.
From you consider slavery, Jim Crow, lingering racism. My family's from Alabama. I felt it as a kid walking in Alabama, the tension, the anger, the hate. So to give that away, the term that really blew it was people of color. What the is people of color?
Ooh, how long have I been saying that? If you watch my channel, I have been saying that since day dot. What is people of color and how does that help us? How does that help anybody? So basically what they're saying in a non-covert way is anyone but white people. So when they say people of color, what does that mean? And what that does is it devalues and dilutes what Black Americans have contributed to America, because it now means more recent immigrants who come here and work just as hard, they're now lumped in. But they have a different set of problems. They have a different culture. They have different challenges that they need to face. But the people of color thing was a catch-all that other people could use to trade on the civil rights movement. And the bad thing about it is Black Americans have allowed pretty much anyone who wants to co-opt the civil rights movement to do so. Because one of the first things that you hear people will say when they're trying to get their cause moved forward is, this is the civil rights movement of our day. That could be the LGBTQ agenda. It could be any agenda. They will always say that. And the fact that we've allowed that to happen, and we actually even use that expression, people of color, which means absolutely nothing, that's our fault. We need to own that and we need to be responsible for it. So thank you, Charles, for saying that.
I mean, I'm so confused. So now you have a rich Indian who can come over to America and get something that ostensibly was designed to help, right? Okay, listen, you had you're behind the 8 ball a little bit. We'll try to help a handful of you if we can.
Yeah.
And even then he didn't qualify.
Yes.
I mean, so now the Asians should be upset. Like, how the hell, he tried to save his Asian. They're like, we know you're not. Look at your grades, right? So, you gotta be kidding me. He offended everyone. Everyone should be offended, but I'm really serious when I say that Black Democrat leaders have sold Black Americans down the river in a way that it's beyond painful. It's beyond reprehensible. It really is.
Do you know where the phrase "sold the river" came from? Slavery. Yeah. I just learned that the other day.
So what Charles Payne said there is where I'm going to leave it. And I'm just going to put that out to everybody. Do you use the expression people of color? And do you just do that because you've heard it said? Have you ever thought through what that actually means? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. You may disagree with me. You may believe that actually, yeah, people should be able to jump on the Black civil rights movement and use that to advance their cause. I don't think so, but I'm always open to being wrong. Make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, and make sure that you share. I'm just a guy with an opinion and a Wi-Fi connection, so I don't have it all right.